Hello, my name is Brian Lenzkes. I'm an internal medicine doc, and I've been practicing in San Diego since 2003. And I just wanted to tell my story because I really, this is an open letter to my patients and also to everyone. I think it's important that we look behind the veil of what's happening with our medical system. After practicing this long, I came to the painful conclusion that I was being ineffective in my practice. The practice that I'm in is the oldest, the most prestigious practice in San Diego with the best doctors. My colleagues are outstanding people, great docs, very smart, very compassionate. Over the years, I've worked hard. You know, as the young doc, I wanted to work hard and earn my keep and pay my bills. I had $500,000 of medical school loans to pay, and it's just overwhelming for a lot of us as we come out of school. So I wanted patients to understand, and doctors to understand why our system's broken, and why I decided to go into direct primary care. It's hard. We build a relationship with patient over the years. I'm taking care of a lot of patients. I've been there in their time of need and helped them, held their hand. I've had patients pass away, and I've had patients have great things happen in life. I've been through the fires with my partners. We underwent at one time we had an embezzlement of $500,000, and we pulled together and we got through it. You know, and we worked as a team. But what I've noticed over time is that we're all kind of drowning, and it's hard. We sacrifice a great deal for our profession. I think a lot of patients don't understand this, so this is a message to patients also. We go into medical school and we want to be to save the world. We want to get out there with our white coats and bring healing and want everyone to be healthy and happy. But somewhere along the way, I lost my way, and a lot of us have. So about 3 years ago, after struggling with weight and being obese my entire life, I started looking into low carb. And by a series of events, I became the co-host of Low Carb MD podcast, where Tro Kalasian, who's one of my best friends in the world and a mentor, we started interviewing doctors and health professionals to look at how to make people healthier, how to prevent disease. Because in reality, if you look at the studies, 88% of us are metabolically ill. We have a disaster situation coming in medicine and for our healthcare system, because if you're 45 years of age, 65% of us are going to develop diabetes or prediabetes at that age. It's an untenable situation. So as a primary care physician, I'll let you know what my life's been like. I wake up at 4:30 in the morning. I work about half an hour, 45 minutes from my office. If I don't get there early, I get stuck in traffic. So I get there and I do labs for 2 hours. I also, do review documents that come in. And then I see patients starting around 8, sometimes 7 if there's a need. And I work through lunch and typically get home again at 7:30 at night, sometimes 10 o'clock at night. It takes a toll on my family, and they miss me, and I missed a lot of events, but I make good money. Last year I made the most money of anyone in the history of the practice and in my history. So the money is a side effect of patient care. And I just want to let you know, it comes at a cost. It does come at a cost. And I understand metabolic health, and some of the most important things we can know is you have to rest, you have to sleep, you have to take care of yourself, you have to laugh, you have to eat right, and you have to exercise, right? And not do habits like drinking to excess or smoking. We can decrease our risk of significant disease just by doing those things. And so at some point, I started realizing I'm sacrificing a lot for my career. And you start to resent when 10 patients need to be seen that day, and you realize, I'm going to miss dinner with my family yet again. So a lot of doctors are in this situation. I'm not the only one. I love what I do. What I do love is being in the exam room, with the patient, talking, being humans. What I don't enjoy is 3 or 4 hours at the end of the day doing coding, trying to meet Medicare guidelines, and there's a lot of doctors will know there's a lot of nonsense out there that we have to do in order to justify what we're doing with patients. But guess what? The really important stuff happens in that examination room and on the phone calls at night and things we do. We're not compensated for any of that, but we do it because we care. So I'll give you a background. I'll let you know exactly what my situation became. I would get home late and my wife would say, "How was your day?" And I'd say, "Yeah, it was a hard one today." And she said, "You always say it's a hard one. How come when you volunteer at Guatemala and you're out in the jungles for 2 weeks at a time, working 14-hour days, you'll come back with 1,000 stories?" I said, "I think it's because the people there are so appreciative, and I'm making a difference, and I don't have a computer because I could sit there and help patients and not deal with prior authorizations or trying to get something approved that the patient needs. So I started thinking about that, and I was asked by Doug Reynolds to speak at Low Carb Florida at Boca Raton. And I said, oh, gosh, I have a lot going on, but I'll take a weekend and I'll go. And so I did. 2 days before I left, a friend called me and he said, Brian, are we okay? I said, what do you mean? He said, well, I'm looking at my calendar, and we've been friends for 15 years. He said, I'm looking at my calendar. Do you realize the last time we had dinner with our wives together? I said, no, it's been a while. He said, 2017, and we're in 2020. So it tells you something. There are sacrifices. And so that was on my mind, and I flew to Boca Raton and had a great conference, had a great time. I gave a talk on deprescribing medications, which is one of my passions. But the problem is, and that's taking medications away rather than adding more and more medications. Problem is, when I practice this kind of medicine, it doesn't fit into the cookie cutter medicine pattern because it takes a long time to explain. You can't do in a 15-minute appointment, possibly address all the patient's issues and then address those. So during the conference, I was there, and Rob Sivas got up, who is a friend of mine, who's one of the most brilliant physicians around, got up and gave a talk on the effects of stress on the human body and calm. And so basically he was saying, we need to take a break. At some point, you need to do what we call a dopamine fast. So the first day, you just wake up in the morning and you sit. You get a piece of paper and a pen and you write down what's on your mind. No TV, no video games, no checking the news, no tweeting, nothing. No interaction with other people, just be on your own and write your thoughts. You can write your blessings, you can write what you're concerned about, what you're stressed about, and you could write letters to friends. You could do something along those lines, but no other stimulation on that day. And I was thinking about that. That stresses me out, thinking about why am I stressed, thinking about sitting for one day and not doing anything. Because I realized if I sit for that one day, it's going to take me a week to dig out. A good friend of mine was sitting next to me who was also a doc, and I said, hey, what do you think? Do you ever do stuff like that? While Rob was up there, and he looked at me and said, I can't even think about it, stressing me out thinking about it. I said, me too. It's like, well, after the talk, I went up to Rob and I said, Rob, do you really do that? Do you have time? I know you're a busy guy. Do you have time to do that? And he said, Brian, it was one of the best things I did, because you know what? I had time to write 5 letters to mentors. I had time to reach out to people, change my marriage, the way I interact with my wife. It changed relationships I had. One day, I was thinking, wow, I've been doing this 17 years and I haven't had that one day. Well, while we're having this conversation, there's several people standing next to us, and I realized that they were waiting. I assumed they were waiting for Rob. And Rob said, so I said, excuse me, yeah, he's a friend of mine. I can come and talk to him later. You guys talk. And I started to walk away, and they said, no, doctor, we're here to talk to you. And this lady from out of the country said, you changed my life. Your podcast spoke to me. I came off insulin. I lost weight. I feel great. My mood is better. And the person next to her is her brother. Same thing. Person behind them, the same story. And they're very appreciative. And they wanted to give me a hug and thank me. And so it was very moving for me. I thought, wow, our podcast that we self-funded. We have no sponsors. We didn't have no corporate interest. All we want to do is learn, and we want to be better doctors. So this is available. And while I was there, I met tons of doctors, cardiologists, cardiothoracic surgeons who get it, and they're helping their patients. And so it started to dawn on me, I'm reaching more people through this podcast that is low budget. This is where we film it, right here. Than I am in my entire practice. Because we're under a lot of pressure and a lot of stress, and it really does take a toll. And I have always expected my partners to help dig me out and save me, but they're drowning also. They just may not realize it as much as I do. And it may be because I have a longer drive, 45 minutes each way, which is an hour and a half or so on top of my long work day. And then trying to fit in exercise and spending time with my wife and my kids. It does take a toll. It absolutely does, no matter how calm and well-established you are. So it got on my mind, and I started thinking about it. Then I ran into Dr. Kristen Bear, and I thought, what a nice person, very kind and decent. And I found out she's from Chicago, and I thought, well, it's nice. Maybe we'll cross paths sometimes. Didn't think anything else of that. And so some other friends were there some new people that I hadn't known before, and we started talking. And so, long story short, I had a great weekend with a lot of great people, learned a great deal. And I was on the way home, and I was at the airport, and I stopped in the waiting room I mean, in the waiting area to get on the plane. I thought, gosh, they should know better. This whole waiting room is full, and they should know how many seats are on the plane and plan accordingly before you get on the plane. And then I realized this is what my waiting room is like a lot of times, overcrowded, and people sneezing and coughing, and you kind of just want to go in the corner somewhere. And so I thought, wow, that's true. We're running a lot of people through that practice with 5 busy doctors, 6 of us all together, and a physician's assistant. So after that, I went to give my ticket to the ticket agent, and as I was walking on, she was hurried because she's looking behind me, seeing a bunch of people. So she didn't really have time to talk too much, and just kind of acknowledged me and handed me my ticket. And I got on the plane. I said, well, that's kind of how my front staff must feel. And then as I got on the plane, I got my seat, and I was thinking, oh, I hope no one sits in that middle seat because I like to have the space. And then you realize if you're a large person, you get stuck in that middle seat, that's devastating because it's embarrassing. Trochalasia, my partner, was 350 pounds when he started. Now he's a 32-inch waist and very fit. But he had to have that extender seat, and that's embarrassing. And you feel bad because you're encroaching on other people. And then I thought, gosh, in the waiting room, maybe my chairs aren't wide enough. Maybe that's a problem. Then I noticed the flight attendants. One was young and perky and happy and talking to people, saying, where are you going? And how long are you going to be there? And, oh, I love your shoes, whatever. She was just very friendly and nice. And the other one was going through the motions. She was kind of bored, glum, and just saying, put your seat up. Put your seatbelt on, make sure it's that kind of thing. And she really didn't care. And she was just kind of going through the motions. And then the grumpy one got up to do the safety announcements. And I was watching her. And as she went through the motion, she was saying, safety exits are here, oxygen mask. And she was, as she was talking, she had no emotion. And as I glanced around, no one was looking at her. And she knows no one's looking at her. And I was just looking at her for the entertainment value of it. But then I thought, she must be thinking, I'm telling you guys how to survive, how to prevent a disaster, and to survive when you need it, and no one's listening. But when things go bad, I'm the first one you're going to be asking, and I'm going to have to save you when things get really bad because you were not listening when I talked to you before. And I said, that's me. That's how I feel for many of my patients. My last 3 patients who've developed diabetes, I predicted it 6 months before it happened. It's a preventable illness and a reversible illness. And that's heartbreaking because we could, if we have the skills and the information that we know, looking at lab values and different numbers, we can avoid these diseases. We're looking at a massive problem, and diabetes is a killer. It's a disease I hate. I've seen people on dialysis, blind, kidney failure, amputations. A good friend of mine just called me yesterday and said, hey, I'm in Guatemala. Remember that guy you talked to 3 years ago about changing his diet because of diabetes? They just amputated his foot. He was one of the top soccer players in the history of the country. And this is devastating. And we've all seen it. And you think, gosh, once you're a disaster, I can't fix it. Once you blow up your engine, I have to replace your entire engine. But guess what? If we would have done tune-ups and just changed your cables, things like that, we could have prevented this disaster. So in medicine, we're dealing with disaster situations all the time that we can't fix. And as doctors, we want to fix the problem. Guess what? Devastating. If you send your patient for dialysis because their kidneys are gone. Heart attacks, diabetes is the #1 disease process that's leading to heart attacks. So you start thinking about that and what kind of impact we're having when we're rushed and hurried, and how kind can we be, and how nice can we be, and how much of an impact can we have. So at the same time, the flight attendant said, hey, if there's an emergency, put your oxygen mask on first and then help other people. As physicians, we forget that. We forget that we have to put our oxygen, we have to take care of ourselves. If you look at the data, which I've looked at and it's devastating, a female physician has 140 times more likely, they're 140 more times more likely to commit suicide than the general population. Physicians, our lifespan shorter than the general population, depression rate higher than the general population, stress, anxiety, marital problems, along all of them. It's a disaster because we're not putting our oxygen mask on first. And so that became very apparent to me. And I felt this calling to talk about this because it's super important. I think a lot of us say, hey, I can go sleeping 2 hours a night, and I've done it many nights, and many times, haven't eaten for a day or whatever it is. And, we look at that as a badge of courage rather than pathology. It's like, I understand pathophysiology of why we get sick, and we'll talk about that a little bit. And at that TRO, I'm giving a talk in New York, and I'm very honored to be there among great speakers that's coming up. And I said, I don't want to speak on the topic he gave me. I want to talk on physician burnout. I feel called to that now. And so I texted him. He said, Brian, that would be great. I didn't think you'd want to do that. I thought you wanted to do something more technical. I go, there's nothing more important to me right now than this. And as I was talking to him on the phone, I walked by the pilot and I realized after I had gone past, I said, you know, that guy put his life on the line for me every time he's up in the air. Tons of years of study, experience. And for the last 3 hours, my life was in his hands. And I walked by without thanking him. And I thought, gosh, that's devastating. He's away from his family. He's sacrificing. I don't know the story, but he got me here safely. And I wonder how many of us really thank the pilot for what he does. And I thought, how many people really are thankful for what I do, for the sacrifices I make? And it's not that I'm not being paid for what I do, but the point is, it's really a difficult job, but it's the most rewarding job in the world also at the same time. So I get back to my office that morning, and my medical assistant, I looked at my bubbles. They call them bubbles in LV. I had 300 documents that came in, being gone Thursday, Friday, and Monday. I had 100 phone messages that I had to return. I had 300 laboratories to review. So I get to work and I'm working hard. And then my medical assistant walks in and tears in her eyes. I said, what's wrong? She said, your patients are brutal. She said, you know what happened? Thursday and Friday, the physician assistant was full because she's not here on Tuesday or on Wednesday and Thursday. So all those patients went on Friday. So on Friday, your patients couldn't go in. And Thursday, there was no one here to see her because all the other partners were too busy to see them. So people were sent to urgent care. People were sent to other places to get care that we should have been able to provide that care. And so I said, okay. And she said, well, here's the deal. Your schedule's packed for the next 2 weeks. You have 0 openings. And I have 9 patients to put in those spots. Where do I put them, doctor? Now I thought of back to the airplane. I said, you know, if I was a pilot and I got on the plane and the flight attendant came to me and said, okay, pilot, while you're getting ready to fly away, you have all these patients in the aisle. You only have 4 seats. What do you want to do with them? Could you imagine that situation? Also, and I was thinking too, so what did I do? By the way, I just shoved them into my schedule. You know, I said, look, put them at lunch, put them after work, honey, I'm not coming home till 10. I got home 10:30, 10 o'clock, 10:30, 3 nights in a row. Well, is this worth it? Because I'm getting up earlier and earlier trying to catch up, staying later and later. It's like, well, I'm not even, 2 nights in a row. I got home, my wife was asleep, and I walked away with her sleeping still. That's devastating. I didn't get to see my kids. And, you know, that's a couple of days. That's not every day. It just happens to be a unique situation. However, over time, every Monday is that same situation. I have 18 people pilot, and I only have a couple seats to put them in. So you start looking at that and you go, gosh, I'm on a treadmill that's too fast. How do I fix this situation? Do I bring in more people? We don't have enough room. Is it my partner's fault? No. Is it the office manager's fault? No. It's the system's fault. We have too many sick people to take care of. That day I had a follow-up, actually that patient I was talking about that went into diabetes ketoacidosis, was admitted to the hospital over the weekend while I was gone. And we had talked about multiple times the path she was on, and it finally happened. I predicted it and it happened. And she was scheduled for a 15-minute follow-up between 4 physicals. And being a human being, it's impossible to talk about these things and do education again in 15 minutes. Plus I realized I'm like that flight attendant. I'm saying the same thing over and over. And at some point you're saying, look, this is going to be a disaster. I'm telling you. And yet people just don't listen and they go and do their thing, and it's frustrating. So I came to the conclusion that I can't help everyone. And I thought about it, and I thought, you know, is it about the money? Did I go into medicine for the money? I didn't. I'm making money because I'm working way harder than I need to. And I said, that's my security. My security is I can pay my school loans. I have 2 daughters in college. And I thought, you know, I've been doing this for so long. I'm established here. What do I do? I have patients that I built a relationship. How do I fix this problem? If I had less patients, would be, and plus I closed my admitting panel. So I haven't had new patients except on emergency situations for the last 3 years, but it's still unmanageable. If I opened my panels, I would get flooded with patients. So you get to the situation, you start realizing what's important in life. I'll tell you two things. And this is a take-home message for everyone. One is your time. My time is valuable. I didn't have enough time to have dinner with a friend of mine for 3 years, really. And I didn't have time to have dinner with my wife or talk to her for the last 3 days. Didn't have time to do things with my daughters. My 2 dogs at home, I didn't get to see them very much. So you start realizing I'm here 14 hours a day. I sleep 4 to 6 hours a day. And number 2, health. Health is important. And this is all I do. Why am I in healthcare? To help people be healthy. I find that people aren't healthy and they're getting sicker every day. And it's a tsunami coming. And I am helpless to do my part. So I started thinking about that. And I thought, Kobe Bryant had so much money. But guess what? He'd give up every penny to have one more day with his daughter, right? And to have his health back. And we take that for granted. And we're destroying our health. And so many physicians I talk to are in the same boat. But guess who's been after me for the last 3 or 4 or 5 years? Trochalasion, multiple direct primary care doctors. And they said, Brian, you're killing yourself. You're killing your family. You're causing yourself damage. You really need to consider this and understand what you're up against. And let me help you. And then I had several people say, I know how to do websites. Let me help you. I know how to do this. Let me help you. And so I resigned my position, my security. Step of faith. I'm a man of faith. That's true. And it takes a heck of a lot of faith. And it's like standing on the edge of a cliff and looking down and say, am I going to take that step? And so I resigned from my practice. And as of July 1st, I made the difficult decision to go into direct primary care. I made several phone calls. Kristen, it turns out, is moving to San Diego. That's where she wants to live. And guess what? We're going to partner. And we're going to work together, and we're going to create a facility for health. We have a chiropractor that's going to join us. So we don't have to just throw drugs at people. We're going to work together as a team, and we're going to bring healing. The doors that have opened are amazing. The sad part is I'm transitioning from a 747 to a Learjet in the sense that I can only take so many people. And I realize that. And the problem is we have to train more doctors to help prevent the disease. Because once the disease starts, we're changing the engine. It's a lot easier to change the oil. So I think I just want people to understand the situation we're in healthcare. The doctors are overburdened because of too many sick people. Dr. Horvitz told me that, and that's why he went into direct primary care. So the direct primary care is not concierge medicine. It's a low fee, maybe $100 a day, a month, so $1,200 a year. And what does that give me as a physician? No more coding, no more billing, no more arguing with insurance companies. What's my job? I have to take care of the patient. And what I also have to do is find the cheapest way around for that patient. So I negotiate with radiology companies and say, how much for a CAT scan, how much for an MRI? We have a high deductible. I do, my daughter does. And she blew out her knee, $1,200 for an MRI. And I said, what's your cash pay price? $250. Here's my credit card, done. How much is an x-ray? How much is this? And you realize it's ridiculous what we're paying and how much we can get laboratories, medications cheaper. For people on Christian healthcare ministries or Medishare, it's a no-brainer. You're paying $150 a month for insurance rather than paying $1,250 a month. So the problem is it's scary when you don't really have insurance to go see a physician. So guess what? You have a flat fee and it doesn't change. The way I look at it is like AAA. AAA, I've been paying for 30 years. I've been told exactly once. My daughter was rescued with a dead battery once, and I've had several times where my car just wouldn't start. My wife had a problem, but how much money have I paid them over the last 30 years and how many times have I used them? But I knew when I called them, they're there. Direct primary care allows me that. Tro was telling me when he got back from our conference, he went on a cruise for a week with his wife. And I said, how in the hell do you catch up after that? It takes me a month after my medical trips, before and after, just to survive, to take care of the patient that I have to take care of. And she said, Brian, I came back to 0 messages. Why? My patients can contact me. I could be on a cruise and they text me. And so that's what you have is access. The problem with our system is access. To get to me, you have to go through 3 people. The answering person goes on a voicemail. By the time I get the message, it's at the end of my day because I've worked through lunch, and maybe it's 6 o'clock. And guess what? I might have 30 messages to call that night and a bunch of laboratories and finish my notes. And so I would get home late again. So it's one of those things where it's hard to have a life as a doc, and you wonder why we're depressed and you wonder why we're stressed. And everyone says kind of just suck it up, doc, keep going. But if my patient came to me, that's what my friend said. He said, if your patient came to you and was having the same kind of stress in work, what would you tell them? And I said, get out of the situation. You have to. You cannot survive that way. And so that's what I'm telling doctors, and that's what I'm telling patients. And it's not right for everyone. I think it's an important decision. For me, $100 a month, I pay more for cable than my healthcare. Am I searching for patients? No, as a matter of fact, I'm very concerned because Chris and I can only take 800 patients, and we've agreed to that because we're not going back into the same situation. Some of the churches have reached out to us already, because for them, they can drop it's a cost-effective plan for them because they're paying $1,200 a month for insurance now. If they change the Christian Healthcare Ministries, $150 a month, and they pay us $100 a month, guess what? It's cost them $250. It's not rocket science for them to know it's a good deal. Problem is, we can only take so many patients, so we're not really seeking patients. So who do we want? We want people with metabolic disease, people who are healthy that want to take care of themselves and stay that way. That's what we love, because if you're like the Lexus drivers, AAA loves them. It's a brand new Lexus. I'm not going to hear from them, and they're taken care of. But what we do is prevent problems. We change the oil for them. We do an annual exam at no charge. There's no nickel and dime. We don't have a credit card machine. So we're excited about that. And this is the model that's going to take off. And because it's good healthcare, and we can prevent disease, and it takes a lot less of my resources. My keto patients that I spent time with 2 or 3 years ago, now we're coming in and they just talk, they go, oh, my knees don't hurt anymore. My back doesn't hurt. I'm off my meds. Everything's great. And also we're going to focus on metabolic health. Weight loss is the side effect, but metabolic health, what do we do? What does that mean? Morbidly obese people, we can monitor them like Tro Collagen's been doing. We can look at their sugars continuously with continuous glucose monitors. We can monitor their blood pressure remotely, so we can see if it's just high when they come in or high at home. Scales with body mass composition, so we can kind of really assess, because it's frustrating when you don't lose a lot of weight, and a lot of people give up on cutting their sugars out because of that. But we have to realize metabolic health, if their insulin levels coming down, if their triglycerides are improving, if their HDL is going up, there are a ton of health benefits from that. So I just wanted to let you know why this is a difficult situation and why I had to make that decision for my family. It's a miracle. Actually, I'm going to be working less than 4 minutes from my house. I don't have to get on the freeway. I can walk to work. It's not a problem. So that's 2 hours a day I'm saving right there. Right upstairs from us at this beautiful facility, which is incredible, there's a big, huge meeting room. So I can spend time with the college kids. I can talk to them. I can mentor. I can tell them about my mission trips and experiences I've had. I have time now. I'll have time to, right around the corner from us in the same hallway is a break room with coffee and a coffee bar and foosball. And it's more than anyone could imagine. And so we're going to have a place of healing and health. And what we want to do is help other doctors. We want to help other people down the road to do the same thing. Because doing the podcast every week, I get 4 or 5, 6, 10 calls. Hey, I'm in this area. Do you have a doctor that can help me? I'm in this area. Can you have a doctor that can help me? And unfortunately, we don't. So many places we don't. But guess what? It's growing, and a lot of doctors are understanding. So I think it's critical that we start preventing disease and being healthcare rather than sick care. So all these things are so important to me, and we're thrilled. Chris and I, we're going to have another talk about our first conversation. In a nutshell, we were both almost in tears because she said, same thing, Brian. I come home from a vacation. I can't enjoy myself because I'm going to work for, twice as much for the next 2 weeks. And it's so hard. And when I said, I got your back. And she goes, I got your back. You know what I want? You to go with your wife and kids and go for a walk, and I'll hold the calls. Anyone who calls, I'll take care of it. I go, I want you to go on vacation and have a date or do whatever you're doing. And I have it. You're free. Because we've been in shackles. We've been prisoners, right, of the system, not our practice necessarily. And the system's broken. So we have to step back. When we could make changes, save lives, help people, make them smile, hear their stories. We have an hour to talk to them. No urges. The other thing that has been a major stress for me is 8 times a day I hear this: doctor, 2 people waiting. I'm talking to them about a life crisis they're having. And I know 2 people are waiting. So in the back of my mind, I'm looking at the clock. The other problem, again, when we try to give a service to people, is people take advantage. So if you have a 2 o'clock appointment and you show up at 2:08 and you have a 15-minute appointment, guess what? My whole afternoon's shot already. The pilots don't turn the plane around and go pick you up. So people have an expectation, and there's a lot of difficult people out there. And so my staff is stressed. I'm stressed, and I see the tension and the stress. Not because they're bad people. It's because they're overwhelmed. It's like the ticket agent trying to get all those tickets done, and she's looking, oh my goodness. If there's 2 people getting on the plane, it's a lot easier. If there's 300, it's a little bit more stressful when you have to watch your time. So, this is very informal. I just wanted to let you know, this is why I made the difficult decision. And I can't tell all my patients every day. I've been working really late because I want to explain to them that I'm not abandoning them. I'm not going for the money, because trust me, I'm stepping away from a very nice salary. But I had to take a step of faith. And the crazy thing is, sometimes when you take a step of faith, there's solid ground under your feet. You think you're going off the cliff, and there's another solid ground. And I'll tell you, in difficult times and times like this, I've had people come beside me and help me. And I'm going to tell these stories. I'm going to do a series of YouTube videos coming up, talking about people who've impacted my life, because that's what I need to do. I need to have time to do that. I can't take time away from my family to do these things. Doing the podcast is a sacrifice, but I enjoy it. I love every second. And you know what? When people thank us, that's all we need. We don't need a ton of money. In Guatemala, I don't make any money. I pay to go, and I'm blessed every time. And as an example, there's a word to patients. Look, I was at the end of the clinic. I was exhausted. I was there 12 to 14 hours, but this is what I do every day. It's not a big deal. But I had no computers. I had no paperwork. I just took care of patients and prayed for patients and spent time, held their hands, did what I'm supposed to do as a doc. At the end of the clinic, an older lady came in and kissed my hand and thanked me, held my face in her hands and said, "Doctor, thank you." And I said, well, I asked her for what? She said, "Thank you for waiting for me." I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Well, I was here at 7 this morning and I thought you would leave before you could see me." So could you imagine, in my practice, if someone waited 12 hours to see me, what kind of reception? Would I get that reception? No, because people are grateful and thankful. And that's who I want. I want people who say, my health is important to me. Look, again, going back, time, right? And your health. Nothing's more important. If you talk to the world experts and you ask Ben Bickman from BYU, who talks about longevity and metabolic health, he says, look, keep your insulin level as low as you can if you want to live a long life. What does that mean? Don't stress, get enough sleep, laugh, enjoy life. Don't drink or smoke, be active, those kind of things. And so that's what we're missing. We could have some of those things. And if you're a physician working a ton of hours, you can't have all those. So security is an issue. But I happen to have a friend who says, "Brian, I got you." And doing a website is stressful. Guess what? I got you. And promoting, I don't do that. I got you, Brian, don't worry. So everyone has come out of the woodwork, and every step I take, there's solid ground under my feet. And when people see this facility I'm going to, it's overwhelming. Everything, if I said, look, I have a list of my dream place to be, it would pale in comparison to this. And they're begging, they're so excited for me to be there. They want us because they want good health, and they want people who can educate and talk. And guess what? I can go up to that lecture hall and I can talk to 500 people at one time. How much time in my practice would that take? That's why Diet Doctor is helping so many people. He realized in my practice of thinking I'm saving the world, seeing 15 or 20 patients a day, we can reach so many more, but we have to do it right. We have to help other doctors. We have to help say, look, you can get out of this. Suicide's not the answer. 140 times the general population for females. Super devastating. They've dedicated their life to a career. They've been through so much, and it ends in suicide. That's tragic. And so we could do better. I can do better. So both of my daughters and my wife are super happy, blessed. Like, we can have coffee together. How many times have I had coffee with my wife in the morning? Very difficult. I might have to wake her up at 4:30 to have coffee with me, and she'll do it. She did it just recently. And I get home late. You're not gonna have that glass of wine and talk about life. And so these things are important. They're critical. Laughter, enjoying things. And I think so many of us physicians have a sense of duty, and we miss out on that, and we don't have time. How many times have I told my dad, no, not this weekend, not a good weekend. My brother I missed so many things with my brother who loves me so much. It's hard. It's a sacrifice. So what I'm saying is, I'm not begging for patience. Trust me, I'm going to be busy, and financially we have it all figured out. Not a big deal. The point is, I'm not leaving because I don't have great patients. I have so many great people and so many experiences and life experiences. But the bottom line is, at some point you can't be drowning your whole life. At some point you have to be able to go in the shallow end and enjoy the vision, rather than being in panic drowning mode. And that's why I made the decision. And another thing that spoke to me is when I made this decision, multiple direct primary care physicians reached out to me. So many that I couldn't get back to them, and it was overwhelming because I'm too busy right now. But I will get back to all of you, I promise that. But Josh Umber has been doing a great job, and he's helped a lot of people. So many people say, I owe my life to him. He's helped me because they see the benefit. And we can't, you know, if you get released from prison in shackles, which I've been in, you want to set the captives free at some point and say, gosh, follow me. And so I'll take people think I'm nuts. You're having a midlife crisis. I'm like, no, it's really reassessing my values and reassessing why I went into medicine and why I'm doing this. Am I willing to give it away? I did. I stepped away from a huge salary, but I think I'll be compensated appropriately, you know, and so I'm not worried about it. But I do know that I'm on the campus with my youngest daughter. I couldn't have orchestrated that any better. We'll have coffee together. We'll talk about life, right? Not at 2 a.m, not when I'm exhausted, but just having time. So time is precious. You know, Kobe will tell you that, would have told you that. Maybe you didn't even know it at the time. So I'm just saying, for all of us, reassess where you're at. And it's not just the doctors, everyone. If you're working your tail off and you're missing out and you're not talking to friends, and man, I have some friends I'm going to catch up to on this podcast as I do it, because it's important to hear the stories and how they impacted my life and why I'm the person I am now. And so it is a huge step of faith, fear, the least sleep I've had in a long time, but also an emotional roller coaster. But man, it is awesome. And I haven't even started yet. But just looking to see that I can provide good patient care. And that's why I went into medicine. And so I'll be practicing medicine the way it should be, without the constant knocking, where you could say, Brian, text me like a friend would say, hey, Brian, can you call this in for me? No problem. What? You need this? No problem. Takes me a few minutes. It's not going to take me 24 hours to take care of that. I can do it now. You need a same day appointment? Great. You want a physical this week? No problem, right? From now in my practice, you have to schedule your physical a year in advance. Why? Because my plane is full all the time. So the only way I could get you on the plane is by sacrificing my family time. So I think it's very critical that we all start looking at that. And for docs, look, is your plane too full? What do? Do you get a bigger plane and keep doing it that way? Or do you get a smaller plane where you can manage it? And when people show up at the ticket agent, you can say, oh, how are you? How are things? Is everything okay? You know, I was in Montana, and these people just talk about the kids and wife and all that when they're at the grocery store, and they don't care. No one cares. No one's in a hurry. They just have time. No biggie. So New York City may not be like that. So I think when you start realizing and assessing and stepping back, that's something I had to do. And it was an extremely difficult decision because I love my partners. They're great docs and great people. But I had to, and my patients, great people, very great people. And I love you all. And I have sacrificed. And some people this may be eye-opening because they said, wow, I thought you were not playing golf. Guess what? I don't play golf. I'm not very good at it. I would love to if I had time. Maybe I'll take it up now. But, you know, I think it's important that you understand for all patients, look, it's easy. Tell your physician, thank you. Thank you for taking care of that paperwork. I've stayed up till 2 a.m. doing paperwork and never got a thank you. And I have some people that every year I know they're going to bring me cannolis at Easter and Christmas, or a glass or a bottle of wine. And I greatly appreciate that. And it's always me, because that means I love you. I love and I respect what you're doing. And I appreciate you. So I'm so excited about this new journey. There is sadness, but it's a step that a lot of us will have to take at some point. And I appreciate your time, you know, because I took some of your time that's precious to you, and hopefully it helps. And I hope, you know, listen to the podcast, and maybe we'll get some new listeners that listen and understand what we're talking about, because it will save your life. We have the world experts. You have it at your access for free. You can do Patreon for $2 if you want, and that's okay. And that helped us. But, you know, I'll tell you, our Patreon supporters kept us going, and we greatly appreciate that, because I was self-funding because I think it's important. And I picked that knucklehead Tro, and he's changing my life. And now we're best friends and we're inseparable, and we're both mentoring each other. And he's been a huge blessing in this. And he's given me a lot of faith and courage. And again, you take the step and there's dirt under your feet. And there's dirt under my feet today. And someday I'm going to show a video of this place, and you're not going to believe it. You'll think I made it up. So thank you. I hope this explains and helps you to understand why I made the decision I made.